I am Rebecca Silvestri, VP of Sales and Marketing with Local Profile, and this is Local Leaders, the interview series with amazing local leaders. Today, I'm so excited to be talking with Irum, Rashid-Jones. She is the COO of Electrician on Call. Hi, Irum.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Woohoo! Well, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So, Iram, you just describe yourself as being one of the most resilient women you will ever meet. Now, that's something big. What brought you to that point, and what makes you say that?
Well, so first, I don't think I was the one who said that. I think
Oh,
everyone who actually hears my story goes, wow, okay, you're the most resilient woman I've ever met. And so I think that's kind of been coined in like every introduction. But, it really stems from just my experiences, as a teen growing up in New York City, and really, packing into, my story of how I survived with less than, a 2% survival rate, which is probably an inflated amount. I probably had less than 2% to survive, and then being able to, flourish and just be here with you all. So I think that's how I got that title. But yeah, do you want me to dive into
yeah. So, so
what
I
makes that?
don't believe you started in New York, right? You
No.
were somewhere else.
Right, right. So I'm of South Asian descent, but our family grew up in the Middle East for many generations. And we had a tragedy in our family, which actually caused us to move and relocate to the States. And so that was many years ago. And just with some cultural, backgrounds and just how things were kind of shaken out, I was the last person from my family of six, to come over to the United States. And that was a very hard transition for me and my family because, remember we were going through this, very difficult moment. We actually had a loss in the family. One of our siblings passed away. And so as you can imagine, like just as a mom having to go through that, navigate through it, my mother had a very hard time having to adjust in not only a new land, but also with her surviving children. And so my place was being bounced between two households. So I grew up in the Middle East in Jeddah and also grew up in New York City. They were very much alike because they're big metropolitan cities, and people sometimes go, how are these two very different east meets west so alike? Well, because they're really, really big cities. They're melting pots. So for a child, it's basically the same city no matter where you're at, but definitely different lifestyles. And so I just continued bouncing from one coast to another. And eventually when I was a teenager and I was, too old to be bouncing around through houses, I eventually came back to the States full time. But unfortunately at that point, my family had moved on and I had a very hard time integrating with them. And so we had a lot of clashes between culture and between my place as just a member of the family. And unfortunately, that led me to, get an intake through, Child Protective Services, which eventually led me into the New York City foster care system as a teen girl. And, when you're going through that process, for people that might, support some of those agencies of where you're caring for children that may have been neglected, as a child going through the intake process, you're promised, safety, you're promised security, you're promised a loving home, you're promised a bed to sleep on. And that was definitely not what I got. Instead, I spent the next couple of years, my high school years, escaping abuse, escaping child exploitation, escaping hunger, fighting multiple near death experiences, fighting my way out of just being abducted, as a teen, a woman, a young girl in the foster care system, which is something that I've never quite understood was so dangerous, and just kind of going through that path every day was survival. And so what my classmates, what my teachers, what my friends didn't know was I was in foster care. And I was probably one of the most flaky friends because I would never show up to homecoming. I wouldn't show up to the dances. I was so busy working 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, because I didn't want anyone to feed me for favors. And for those that don't understand what that means is sometimes in these difficult situations, especially in foster care, you're given food, and sometimes your basic needs are taken away from you to weaken you so much that you become a victim of some of these things that I escaped. And so I basically would go, hey, if I can work at a fast food restaurant, I can be fed. Now, if I can be fed, then I can hang on to like the scrap of a chicken bone, literally a chicken bone, for 3 or 4 days, which means by Friday, I won't have any school lunch to eat, okay? But at least I'll have food. So if someone decides not to feed me, at least I have a chicken bone that I've been hanging on to for several days that I can eat. And that was my reality for years. So when all of the other kids in class would go, oh my God, it's the weekend, we're going to go and do all these fun things, I was sitting there going, oh my God, it's the weekend. I got to survive this. What am I going to do? And so I spent several years doing this, sleeping on a stairwell because it was safer to sleep there than it was in my own bed. I spent so much time sleeping with my sneakers on and with my backpack packed with everything in case I had to run in the middle of the night, which was a common thing to do. And so, when you live through those type of situations and it becomes your normal, you're constantly in survival mode. There's no way to shake out of it. And so I've spent many years doing that, eating ketchup, like literally that was my lunch, was ketchup, smoking a cigarette to curb my appetite so I didn't have to spend more money on food. And for the person looking in, they would go, man, here's a 16-year-old who's smoking. What they didn't know was the 16-year-old was smoking a cigarette to curb her appetite because she didn't want to be a victim of child exploitation where someone wasn't going to feed me for a whole week. And this was our reality. And when I say our reality, I grew up in foster care homes. I grew up in group homes. And those were all areas and spaces that I continued to run away from because I've always kind of felt like when that danger arrived, somehow you have a sixth sense after a while. And you'll hear a lot of, trauma victims, PTSD victims, talk about this when they go, I know when danger's coming, I can sense it. I can sense it from a mile away. I can smell it. I can feel it. I fear it, and I'm just going to run. And so for many years, I ran away from that. I kept myself super busy. I kept myself productive. I promised myself that if I was ever to come out of this situation, which at some points of my life, as a teenager, I go, I think this is it. I think this is how life is going to be. And, but I did make myself a promise. If I ever came out of this, I would use all my time and resources to help people understand the misconception about foster children. It's not that they get in trouble. It's sometimes they are a product of their environment or of a neglect or abuse. And not every foster home or foster care situation is a safe situation. And that's why we have to be so careful to have oversight committees and making sure that our children are actually very safe, because some of the people that were in charge of taking care of me were the same exact people who were trying to exploit me. And so, at the end of the day, this is a very real situation. It's something where I look back and go, thank God I made it through, with, and able to move forward. And so eventually I bootstrapped my way to college. I, landed into different, careers in technology as well as in construction. And I just kept moving forward with it. But I always kept that promise, right? I carried that torch, that promise at the end of the day that kind of pushed me into not giving up was if I get ahead of this, if I come out of this, then I have to go back and make sure that we prevent this from happening. I don't want to be on the receiving end where people are already broken and now we're trying to fix the situation. I want to get ahead of it. So that is really the quick, really quick recap of just having to go through a time in your life, which is supposed to be the most precious time, fun time, where you get to know yourself for real and you get to make lifelong friends and celebrate life. Instead, I spent that time surviving in New York City by myself, no supervision, but with one pair of sneakers, having to run every chance that I got, and being so embarrassed, which is something that now is a moment of reflection. Was at that time I was so embarrassed of being in this situation, which I had nothing to do with, and being able to grow through that, and then really finding people at a later stage in life where I am now to go, it's okay. It was never you, it's okay. And being able to help people, heal through that process and be more productive to go, okay, what can we do now? We were children of it. We were products of it. What can we do now to make sure that we get ahead of the game? So that's really, Rebecca, how that kind of played out. And I just thank you for allowing me to share, that story with you all about just, growing up in the foster care environment.
That is an incredible story. So thank you so much for opening your heart and sharing that with us. Could I ask, how has such a horrible experience really changed your life and put you in a place where you're really now succeeding?
Right. When you have multiple near-death experiences, it gets kind of implanted to you very quickly what really matters, right? So like, for example, I went to a meeting and one of the ladies goes, and she said, I can share this with you guys. She goes, I'm having a horrible day. She goes, I'm having a horrible day. It messed up my coffee. I'm having a really bad day. And so I said, a bad day in my book is take it back. I told her, I said, a good day when I was growing up, a good day in my book is when they decided not to feed us, but they still beat us. They fed us, but they still beat us. I said, but a bad day is when they wouldn't feed us. They would beat us. And someone would have to run away because they were getting ready to be violated. Okay. That is a bad day. Your coffee getting messed up with too much creamer or someone cutting you off, that's not a bad day. You're in your vehicle. You're able to drink a drink because that's your morning habit, not because that's the only meal you're going to have for the rest of the day. So I think that perspective, that those near-death experiences really open up your eyes to what is perspective, what is a true need out there. And so, if you ask me, Irum, have you ever had a bad day? I'm going to be like, in my adult life, absolutely not. In my child life, absolutely. I've probably had more bad days than I had good days, but it helps you put things into perspective. You never lose your cool because you understand you're not running into a near-death situation. You're not having to save your life, even if it means that you're laid off, honestly, even if it means that there's a huge drift in your work or your shift, doesn't mean that you're going to die. Doesn't mean someone's going to rejoice because they've inflicted hate on you. And so there's certain words and certain things that we do as adults where we're just comfortable. And sometimes when we're taken out of our comfort zone, it becomes a horrible day for us. It throws us off track. But for someone that's lived through things that really have shaped them, I can, come forward and go, I'm having a great day. I'm having a productive day. I have 24 hours in a day. How am I going to make this the most productive as possible? Because I know the value of not only my life, but the value of all lives around me. And so it really helped me, open up those perspectives, not only to myself, but to others, to say, not really having a bad day, it's going to be okay. But it's also helped me to raise my emotional intelligence with groups that I work with. So you can hand me a group of 2 people or 2,000 people, and guess what? We're going to get the mission accomplished because we're going to celebrate our victories every step of the way, because there's so many things that we can be proud of. And learning is a process that we can all be proud of every single day. Is something that we accomplish. And as long as we wake up with this mentality of how can I be better today than I was yesterday, a little bit more better today than I was the day before, that consistent improvement, that heart to, listen and serve, and how can I be a blessing to you today, that is what has shaped me. I think experiences from having such a horrible, childhood or horrible, teenage impressionable years, and knowing that I've survived that, and statistically I didn't die, that there's definitely much more room for improvement in ways that we can calm each other down in the process. So, if you know me well, you know that I get placed into a lot of emergency situations. I do a lot of, communications when it comes to, critical communications out there, when a lot of people are like flipping their lids or running around with chickens with their heads cut off. I'm always cool and calm about it, because for me, no one's losing a life, right? So that's probably the most that it has shaped me, is understanding truly what the priority is and keeping emotions in check. Because if I wasn't living that way back then, when all this craziness was happening, where I did have an excuse, I could have been irrational. I could have been, always, running around a different way, or decided to do things in a way that wasn't productive. It would have led me through a completely different path. So I think, the clarity, making sure that we understand what the goal and objective is really how I kind of live my life. And it just parlays into business just that easily.
Wow, I learned so much. I mean, but you're right. It's like questionable coffee is not a bad day. Every day is a great day, and every day is full of opportunity. So that leads me into, what is Ikigai?
Yeah, so, and I'm proud of you. You did pronounce it right. It's called Ikigai, absolutely. And that is a beautiful, beautiful concept. And some of you ladies, some of you guys may already be doing this. It's a concept that says, okay, you take an inventory of yourself. It's a Japanese mindfulness concept, and it's basically a way of defining your reason for being. What is your purpose of being here on this planet, on this earth, in this interaction? And the first thing that you do is you start off by taking inventory of what are your unique abilities and gifts and goals. What's that uniqueness that you bring to the table? And then how can you use those unique attributes to make money, right? Your career. How can you use them to improve the community, which is your, philanthropic, services and your volunteer services to the community? And then what does the world need more of, right? Sometimes that can be completely separate from what you're doing as a volunteer and what you're doing as a career standpoint. Maybe that's your role as a mom. Maybe that's your role as an advocate of some sort. And so just think about those diagrams where those circles overlap, and then there's a sweet spot in the very middle. And living your Ikigai is living in that sweet spot. So every day you get up, every day is productive. You probably won't even need an alarm clock to get up. I don't need an alarm clock to get up. I just get up and I go, I got work to do. And it's going to touch one of these, large areas. And every day is a productive day, because you're working in the elements and the unique gifts that were given to you, or those experiences or those insights. All of those things wrap up into making you as unique and as gifted and a gift to the world as much as possible. And now it's your responsibility to use those in the right areas. And that's truly what Ikigai is about. And so, I'm blessed to be, business owner in several different, ventures. And I'm blessed to be a community volunteer in the areas that mean so much to me. So I sit on the board for this Side Up family. It's all about families there. The Texas Pool, it's all about lasting, childhood memories that really carry us on. And so I'm very blessed to be in those spaces that really warm my heart up. So I really hope that others can take that inventory and do the same.
Ikigai. I'm gonna look it up and take a look at that myself. It's wonderful. Well, we're going to see you again as part of our Women in Business on the 23rd of October. So for those of you who don't know about our Women in Business Summit, it is our 19th annual Women in Business Summit. This year it's going to be on the 23rd of October and it will be virtual. It's a full day. However, the format is duck in, duck out. So I encourage you to take a look at the schedule, figure out which sessions really appeal to you and plan your day around that. Also included on the schedule is speed networking, and that's one-on-one. So imagine speed networking where it's literally one-on-one. We're doing that, but on a computer screen. So it's a great opportunity for you to meet lots of people one-on-one. And the session that Irum is going to be participating in is the challenges of change, reinvention, risks, and rewards. And that is entrepreneurial stories and lessons learned along the way. Irum, just give us a little snip of what you're going to be sharing on that panel.
We're definitely going to be talking about pandemic proofing your business. So just a glimpse.
Pandemic proofing your business. It's important right now.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. We're excited to see you on the panel. Reminder to everyone, check it out at localprofile.com/WIB 2020. And we'll be back with local leaders next Tuesday with James Craig, the broker president of Craig International. So I look forward to seeing you then. And bye, Irum. Thanks so much for joining us. And bye, everyone at home.